Hey, Warrior Saints, glad to have you beautiful people in with us today. I'm going to tell you a very true story. My wife and I got in a fight. I know that that's shocking because I'm wonderful. So how could we get in fights? Because the reality is, this is what happens in life, right? People say things, they don't always understand what's actually being said, they don't always agree with what's being said, and that's when the fight starts. I'll never forget the first time my wife and I got in a little argument, a little tiff. She said to me at the end when I apologized, and I went to her and I said, "Babe, I'm sorry. That was not cool of me. I got other stuff going on and I took it all out on you, and I'm really sorry." She looked at me and she said, "I forgive you." And I was like, "Who are you to forgive me?" I'm going to her to apologize. And then I'm offended that she somehow is forgiving me, as though that makes her somehow in authority over me. How that somehow, in my mind, made her better than me. And then my inner hood comes out. "You think you're better than me?" No, but that's not really what's going on, right? We need to be able to give forgiveness. Father Chris talked yesterday beautifully about the power of apology, how important it is for us to own it and to go and apologize and really own our mistakes. We also, when we're owning it, have to be willing to own the granting of forgiveness, something that my wife demonstrates to me beautifully. Time and again, no matter how much I do not deserve it, she's always willing to grant me forgiveness. She's always willing to show me that power of forgiveness. And this is really what the essence of Christ's life is showing us. Father Chris talked about yesterday in Matthew 5, if you are offering your gift at the altar and remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift, be reconciled, then come and offer your gift. That means that, as he pointed out, we're not supposed to have something against our brother, right? We're not supposed to have those things where we are holding on to them. We're holding on to the anger, even though the anger might feel good, even though we might like that. Christ goes on in Matthew chapter 6, as he continues the Sermon on the Mount. And we hear, if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. If you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. And it's always interesting. It strikes me. There's a caveat going on, right? It's like, if you want this, then you got to do this. There's a quid pro quo. You have to be willing to do the thing that you are asking from God. And he says it at the end of the Lord's Prayer, at the end of his explanation of what prayer should look like. He reminds us, if we forgive men our trespasses, if we forgive men their trespasses, then our Heavenly Father will forgive us our trespasses. This is powerful. This is huge. This is a great treasure that we're being given. And we often lose sight of that because we want to preserve our own ego. We want to preserve the "who do you think you are to give me forgiveness" in our conversations with our spouses and others. We want to hold on to this supposed pain that we feel, that we have been slighted. And there are times where we have been slighted and we should hold on, or at least be wise about it. But the granting of forgiveness is a much greater gift than anything else. It's this beautiful treasure. Not the treasures that we think, the treasure of ego preservation. And Christ talks about this later in Matthew's 6th chapter. And he says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume and thieves break in and steal. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Are you holding on to these treasures that is your ego? By not giving forgiveness, by not letting it go, by holding on to it, clouding yourself, shrouding yourself in darkness, clouding yourself in this it takes a lot of work to hold on to stuff. It takes a lot of work to not be willing to give forgiveness. But Christ is showing us that if we're laying our treasure in our ego, then that's where our treasure is going to stay. And if we're laying up for ourselves our treasures in heaven, which is granting forgiveness, giving that letting go a little bit of the stuff that we're holding on to that we think we need to preserve ourselves, then our heart will also follow and go where it needs to go, heavenly, if you will, or at least on our eyes following, getting out of that darkness, not being shrouded, not being covered, not being blocked by this self-preservation, and allowing ourselves to see the world more clearly. We hear this beautifully in St. Paul's letter to the Romans. Let us cast off the works of darkness, put on the armor of light. Let us conduct ourselves becomingly as in the day. We're called out of darkness into a marvelous light. We hear that in 1 Peter. You are a royal priesthood, a holy nation. If God has called you out of the darkness into a marvelous light, we're called to live and walk then as servants of the light, as St. Paul says elsewhere. We're called to be in the light, not shrouding ourselves in darkness because we're unwilling to forgive others, because we're so concerned with preserving our ego that we lose sight of it. But that's what crucifixional living is all about. Crucifixional living is all about placing aside our will or our ego so that we can submit ourselves to God's will. And we want you to join us on our path where we're trying to do that. Visit us at warriorsaints.org. Get on the way of the warrior saint. We'll be back again tomorrow. And until we see you then, you keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.